Did it give you guys, did it say something about recording?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, I'm assuming we're recording. Welcome, if you're watching this on video, to the number 3 Parents of Athlete webinar. I believe we have one parent of an athlete on here who's also a coach. So we don't have a lot of guests on here, but I want to go around. We're going to have a conversation about tonight's topic. But before we do, I'd like to ask all 3 of you coaches to introduce yourself. Give a little bit of your background, Ashley, and where you started in sports and where you've been coaching and where you've ended up and so on.
Yeah, I'm Ashley Phillips. I'm currently the head coach at Northeastern University for the women's soccer team. I grew up in Massachusetts. Played high school at 2 schools, Fenwick and Milton Academy, and then I went on to play at Clemson University. And then I was fortunate enough to play professionally with the Breakers for 5 years, and at the same time started coaching as an assistant coach at Northeastern. And between professional coaching and Northeastern, I haven't left Boston since. So I've been back here since 2010, and the head coach with the program for the last 6 years.
Perfect. How about you, Mr. John Morrissey? Give us a little bit of your athletic story and coaching story.
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in Connecticut, in the New Haven area. Went to public school through the 10th grade in my hometown, which was North Branford, Connecticut. Did my last 2 years of high school at Taft School in Connecticut, and went to Bates College up in Maine, where I played 4 years of baseball. Actually went to work at Bates for a couple years after graduating in their alumni and development office. And after a brief stint at Brown in the same capacity, I've been at Middlesex School in Concord, Mass for the past 24 years, both doing alumni and development work as well as coaching in the baseball program. First as a varsity assistant coach, and for the last 17 seasons as the head coach in the baseball program here.
All right, thanks, Coach. And Mr. Kip Jackson, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Kip Jackson. I'm currently the head football coach at Merrimack High School in Merrimack, New Hampshire. I grew up on Long Island at the eastern end of the island. Played multiple sports there. Went to Carnegie Mellon University, and before I got on campus, I had the wonderful foresight to have a disagreement with the head football coach, who's now in the College Football Hall of Fame, and I'm not. So that worked out really well, and always wanted to be involved with athletics as well as coaching. I was one of the kids who always was a coach on the field in every sport, and finally had a position from a professional standpoint, which allowed me to coach, and started doing that about 25 years ago and haven't looked back since.
Where did you start your coaching career and where have you been?
So I started coaching at Franklin High School in Franklin, New Hampshire, which once again shows that alumni of Carnegie Mellon University aren't very intelligent, because I was working in Lowell, Massachusetts, driving an hour and 15 minutes each day to Franklin. After coaching in Franklin, moved to Nashua South, and from Nashua South came to Merrimack High School.
Well, before I get into you made me think, Kip, before I get into the topic tonight, which is leadership and the lack thereof, and how to, as parents and coaches, engender more of that, the love of coaching, can we get you, Ashley, to talk about what, and things have changed, I think they've gotten harder, but the love of coaching, what is it for each of you? Ashley, you go first.
Yeah, I think I originally got into coaching because I was fortunate to have coaches that I really looked up to and helped, mentor me and guide me through life. And, I think that originally inspired me to get into the profession. And Kip kind of jokes, my Clemson degree didn't take me very far outside of the game of soccer. So I think it was something I felt, comfortable and confident in. But I think now what keeps you in it is, when you do have those players that you make a large impact on their life, you really feel proud of those moments, and it's a reward, even as sometimes it's not constant or every player, every season that you say connected with all the kids. I think the ones you do really make it worth it. So for me, those milestones and moments that you get to be a part of future and, in their future lives, keep bringing you back for more.
Perfect. How about you, Coach Morrissey? What's drawn you all these years to coaching?
Yeah, I would say similar to Abby there, the way you can impact. Ashley, sorry, my apologies. The way you can impact, the young people you're working with, and really, I take the approach of, you're trying to make them better athletes, better players on the field, but most importantly, you're trying to make them better people, because maybe some of them will go on to, play at a high level. For us, that would be D1 college, but very few of them are really going to make a living doing it. So, it's how are we going to impact these kids so that they can lean back on the lessons that they learned when they were with us, when they're going through their lives, and they can hopefully make the sort of decisions that we would like to see them make, and become good, productive citizens. So that's really it. I mean, we got obviously it's younger kids here at the high school level, 9 to 12th grade. So we really have them in some formative years. So we're trying to establish good habits and make them into better people.
Thanks, John. How about you, Kip?
Oh boy. So I grew up in a single parent household, and unfortunately, many of my friends were in the same situation. So there weren't a lot of father figures. So the people who influenced me probably the most, other than the people I grew up with, were my coaches in multiple sports. It's pretty weird. Sorry about that. My football coach, who just turned 84 years old last weekend, I go out to breakfast with him once every couple of months. I talk to him once every few weeks, and definitely wouldn't be where I am today without him and the influence that he had on my life. I was the first person. I'm the youngest of 6 in my family. I was the first one to go on to college after high school, and a lot of it was due to a lot of the time and energy that he spent with me. And I think if you talk with any of our kids at Merrimack High School, as well as at Nashua and Franklin, they'll tell you that we spend a lot of time with them talking about their goals, about what they want to be when they get older, and a lot of that's due to the impact that Coach Bud had on me. I mean, I agree with Ashley and John, just in terms of. I always go back to the Jackie Robinson quote, a life is not important except in the impact that it has on other lives. And we try to live that every single day. And that's really my why. It's weird that you asked this question, because I've been struggling the last couple of months with my why from a coaching perspective, just because of COVID. The kids have been, I think, it's been a more difficult for us to have a connection with them. As a result, that's had me questioning myself and my why. But being able to talk to my coaches, as well as some of our former players, has allowed me to really have a reconnection with my why and why we do this.
As the moderator here, it would be unwise to avoid the COVID topic. I mean, how did COVID affect your young women at Northeastern, and affect your relationship to the women, and your relationship to the profession of coaching?
Well, I think the biggest thing in the profession is that human connection and those relationships built. And, I think for everyone out there in the world, COVID threw a big wrench in that, and how those things operate. And, it turned everything that's already overwhelmingly virtual for a lot of our young women into completely virtual. So, I think the social connection and the feeling of like human relationships in terms of face-to-face contact was really limited. And I think that, made some individuals who aren't as comfortable with the social interactions via virtual devices, struggle emotionally and mentally. And a lot of them felt alone, right, or disconnected. And people who aren't as savvy to reach out and connect, maybe got lost in the shuffle a little bit. And I think that was something that we really had to sit back and reflect on, like how can we help them as we re-enter, kind of being back in person. So I still think there's things that we're potentially still gonna deal with as kids that, at younger ages really face this in terms of social contact and caring. And, it's different when you can't just get a hug from a friend or someone gives you a high five. Every day and every night, these athletes are used to being around people. And I think, for a long period of time, that was kind of stripped away from them. So I think it's going to be something that we'll continue to see a trickle down effect from. But I definitely think there's some individuals who are impacted greater than others, but it definitely hindered our ability to connect and create relationships. And, you don't get as much of that affect, right? If you're having a conversation over the phone or via Zoom, you can't always tell how they're feeling or read their body language as well. So you don't necessarily know their needs. And I think it was definitely a challenging time, especially in what we're used to. We're kind of parents away from home, right, for 30 young women. And for that to go away and for them to be back in like their real homes in an environment where they're sitting in their room all day and, supposed to be going to school online and stuff like that. I don't think it was super beneficial to their social engagement. And I think that's a huge part of young people's lives and us too as coaches, right? I think it was challenging for us to be so isolated, but I think for young people, as John kind of mentioned, in their formative years, to miss out on a lot of that human connection and social interaction, is really detrimental in terms of, physical and emotional. It definitely hinders people and us. And again, I think we're still trying to recover from it, honestly. And I think we will. I think we're going to keep seeing young people coming into college potentially a little bit behind, whether that be academically or socially. Their ability to communicate and interact and meet people. I think there's going to be a few more years where we're really going to see a challenge of them trying to adjust to the college landscape.
I appreciate your comments. I'm going to ask John in a second, who has two kids. One just finished a D3 college field hockey experience, right, John? Your daughter and son is
That's correct.
And senior in high school. The COVID thing. I was going to say something about it. It slipped my mind. But John, having two kids, a college kid and a high school kid, what did you observe in your daughter and son as to the effects of COVID on them?
Yeah, I mean, it was crushing. It really was. Two active kids who, my wife and I encouraged them to get into sports from a young age because of that connection, that Ashley spoke of, and learning how to be part of a group, and working together to on a shared goal, and just sort of one day snap your fingers and now you're in your room. And for my son, the baseball season in 2020 just evaporated, as it did for many spring athletes there, as we were on the cusp of beginning the season, one that he and his teammates really were looking forward to. And so I mean, combined athletically, my kids lost 4 total seasons. 2 baseball seasons with our son Owen, and 1 field hockey season with our daughter Siobhan. And yeah, the Siobhan finished her senior year this fall, thankfully. Owen's back on the field here this spring and will continue to play in college. But I think they look back now really on lost opportunities, right? And that'll be something I think that is always there and always kind of gnaws at you. It certainly will to me as a parent, having lost that. But we're trying to move forward and really focusing now on undoing the type of damage that Coach talked about there in terms of kids' ability to cope with things and be as highly functioning as they should be. So I feel as though the ramifications will be felt for several years.
It's a segue into tonight's topic. In a sense, it's a segue in, which is on my email here. The third webinar, The Anatomy of Leadership. What makes a leader? Ideally, there are times when every player on the team assumes a leadership role in one way or another. However, many athletes today don't have the emotional skills, what we call the 6 I's: imagination, independence, intestinal fortitude, integrity, and intimacy, which all form identity, to step up when called upon. In this webinar, Jeff will discuss how to teach your kids these skills. Interestingly, it often requires parents and sometimes coaches too, giving their kids more space to learn these skills on their own. So this is an action-packed paragraph. The 6 I's, and I want to get you guys' general reaction to these 6 words, and maybe just pick one to talk about. Ashley, you go in the same batting order. Imagination, independence, intestinal fortitude, also known as guts, resiliency, integrity, intimacy, all of which are needed to form identity. I'll put these, I'm going to copy and paste these in the chat, but Ashley, is there one of those words that bounces out to you that you'd like to comment on? I'm going to put them in the chat again here.
That would be helpful. I just couldn't read that far.
Oh, hold on. Imagination, independence, intestinal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you see them in the chat?
Yeah, I see him now. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things have created challenges for young people to develop these things. But I think independence, right, in particular, I know we talked to our young women a little bit about this, is they came to college, and for some maybe just spent a year and a few months, or excuse me, like 7 months, right? For our older kids, was over a year. For even our oldest class this past season, our juniors, they had really only spent 2 years on campus before everything happened, and then they go back home, right? And obviously they'll have great homes for the most part and love their families, but it's a sense of independence that is intended to be developed in college that is then taken back away for no one's fault, but that's just very normal. Parents or whoever your caretakers are love you and care about you and want to know where you are. They want to cook your dinner. They want to do your laundry. They want to help you schedule. They want to help you plan. They want to help. That's they feel their responsibility as adults is to help you and guide you. And I think for a lot of our young people, and even some that were in high school now transitioning to college, they went from a phase where people were trying to help them develop the skill sets to reach the next moment of their life, to where every one of us was in some sort of panic, right, and concern, and didn't know what was next and what would come after COVID, where I think it changed everything to, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to help them. I'm going to make sure they're okay and they're cared for and they're loved and they're appreciated. And we almost went back to like helicoptering them, right? Because we're so concerned about how they felt and how scared they must have been, that we stripped them of all of these things that they had already actually started doing to kind of progress to the next stage of life. And I think even as coaches, there was instances of that, right? we threw standards and fitness and all this stuff out the window. Like, just get outside, have some fun, and do this stuff, because you're like, oh man, their livelihoods have just been taken away. Like, we got to lay off. I know. Yeah, some of the girls have told us their professors could have cared less about what they actually learned, and they just felt bad, right? We all felt bad for each other and for these young people that we cared for, and feeling bad. I think we stripped them of a lot of independence. We took away a lot of responsibility that they were required of, and some we took away, and some COVID stripped them of, right? Of getting to practice and showing up on time for meetings and being a part of a team and caring about your teammates. Some of that was taken by COVID, but I think as humans and adults, we also kind of stripped a lot of that away, because we felt so concerned about the overwhelmingness of the COVID situation, that I think they're actually facing that harder now, because they've now gone 2 years of being kind of stripped of the progressive independence that they normally work through, to saying, okay, well, now you're a junior, now you're a senior, you're supposed to lead, you're supposed to be a captain, you're supposed to be the mentor and the guider for everyone. But the last time they were real college students, they were freshmen. The last time that they were held to standards, they were freshman standards, and now they're senior standards. And I think, as adults, and, I'm sure as parents, at the time, I don't think we realized the long-term consequence of just trying to help, right? It was all innocent harm, but we were all just trying to help and make them feel better and make them happier. And we felt bad about the prom and the parties and all the, games they missed as people, and that over caring, I think, actually, set back the development of independence and learning to cook and learning to do their own laundry and learning how to manage their time and show up to class and, writing papers, right? I have freshmen that never had to turn in a normal 10-page paper, and now as juniors, they're expected to do a 20-page one, and they're like, just so far behind, I think. I think we've set people back in terms of their ability to navigate becoming independent adults, because at some point in their lives, they will be more responsible for themselves and potentially a family or a significant other, or pets, right? All these other things that come in the next part of life. And I think we have a lot of the world that's been set back a couple of years. Again, I don't think it was intentional. I think some was circumstantial due to COVID, but I also think some as adults, we really felt so guilty and bad for everything they were missing, that we kind of took away all that they needed to develop in that time span.
Yeah, no, I saw that the fellas, Kip and John, nodding. Does either of you want to pick up on this independence? And it goes to intestinal fortitude, obviously, too. John, I see you nodding. Do you have something you want to add or talk about?
Yeah, no, I was thinking, again, totally concur with all of Ashley's statement there. And I do think it does also affect the other eye of intestinal fortitude. She's totally right about the standards being, loosened both in the classroom and on the field. And now kids are, held to that standard that should have been there all along, and they don't necessarily have the intestinal fortitude to respond, right? And I would submit that we had an intestinal fortitude problem with our kids long before COVID happened. Certainly with the kids, that I've been coaching over the last several years. So I think it was exacerbated by COVID for sure. And the problem has been made worse, but we have kids who just, in my estimation, are not tough. They don't, when adversity strikes, they will often fold. And again, back to my earlier comments of preparing them for life, right? Adversity is going to strike in your life. So if when that happens, you sort of fold like an accordion, that makes me worry, right? So, I definitely think the intestinal fortitude has been damaged, certainly by COVID, but just kind of the way society's going. I'll give you an example, Jeff. This is new news to you, but it's going to be 96 degrees on Saturday. And our scheduled game against Belmont Hill, which was supposed to be a 2:00 start, is being moved by our school and the training staff because they're concerned, about the heat index, which, okay, I
Coach
guess it's a
baseball,
real
right?
concern.
You coach baseball,
Yeah.
right? All right.
Yes, I
Throw 'em
do.
on.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's right, coach. So yes, okay, football, lacrosse, helmet sports, a lot of running, contact, maybe on turf. We have a grass field. We're playing a baseball game on a grass field.
Where are they? When are they
and
going to play it? When are they playing it?
I think it's going to be moved up to earlier in the day when supposedly the heat index isn't going to be as high. Now, I'm not trying to be Bear Bryant here saying they should be out there without any water and just letting people drop from heat exhaustion. Will obviously take certain precautions, but to me, it just speaks of the general sort of move away from anything that might be deemed as risky by an administrator, but also that causes a kid to kind of roll up his or her sleeves and say, okay, I've got to deal with this. It's hot out here. And I have to respond and still try to be at the top of my game. So, to me, it's just ridiculous and speaks to just the softness that has come in our world these days. And so, that's something we need to fight against.
I think every sports athletic coach that I've talked to over the last 10 or 15 years is concerned about kids' intestinal fortitude. And I want to talk, and Kip, give you a chance, but I want to try to talk about solutions after Kip gives his remarks, because finding solutions within your own team when you coach 30 young ladies at Northeastern or 20 boys in a prep school in Mass, or 50 high school boys and it's your little crucible, but the boys come to you, or the girls, with relationships to these 6 eyes, particularly intestinal fortitude. And so it's tough. But Kip, after you speak, I'd love us to try to, maybe it's fantasy or brainstorming solutions, but I think we're all pretty deeply concerned about this generation, because it's hard to develop a solid identity if you lack guts, if you lack resilience, call it intestinal. It's hard to feel solid inside. So Kip, can you comment, and then maybe we can try to think about some solutions.
Do you want me to comment on intestinal fortitude or one of the other eyes?
Any of the eyes you want.
Intimacy to me is a big one. Only because I think a lot of intimacy is related to trust, and I think as coaches, we're in a business that really depends on trust, whether it be parents trusting the coaches, the kids trusting the coaches, the kids trusting each other, and unfortunately, without the intimacy, that comes back to some of the personal connection that was lost during the pandemic, as well as I think a lot of the current generation, and all of us use this now to communicate versus having face-to-face conversations, and that's led to kind of a loss of that eye in the development of kids. It's difficult to get kids to have a conversation. They're not ever put in a position where they have to have personal connection with someone, and that ends up being a problem later on in life, as well as while you're in high school. So to me, that's a big one that we need to work on.
And I think of these eyes, as all intimately related.
Mhm.
I show them on the screen, but you need healthy doses of all 5 of them to get to a place where your identity is solid. And so we didn't talk about imagination as much. We didn't talk, I got to get back, about integrity as much, but we've talked about independence a little bit, intestinal fortitude, intimacy, right? They're all related. And we could spend hours talking about these ideas, but when it comes to solutions, what has worked for you guys? What would you, if there are parents that listen to this recording and other coaches, right? What has worked? What has worked to develop tough kids, trusting kids, kids that are close, kids that have imagination, can picture coming back from a, depends on the sport, but a 3-0 deficit in baseball or soccer, or a 21-0 deficit on the football field. What has worked in you guys' experience during COVID or in the last 5-10 years?
Ashley was batting leadoff. I thought she was going to go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can go if you want me to go. I think one thing that we've kind of talked about, I think sports give you a really unique opportunity to practice these things without significant consequence for the most part, right? I think sports should be, I don't think it is, but it should be, especially youth sports, right, and collegiate sports, should be an opportunity where young men and women are given the opportunity to work through trials and tribulations that don't ultimately have a significant negative consequence if they fail, right? Because if you lose a game, or if a kid struggles or isn't playing well, or maybe doesn't get in because they're not good enough, there's nothing significantly detrimental to that in their long-term life, right? They might learn things about perseverance and adversity and facing it, and all these things that allow you to have intestinal fortitude can be learned through the lack of success in sports ultimately, right? I mean, most successful kids or people that play sports, sometimes they don't even face as much adversity as some of the less successful ones, and learn as many lessons along the way. And I think the biggest thing is that we're actually taking something that is meant to be a fun life lesson teaching event in people's lives and making it more of a business or a popularity contest or a favoritism thing where players move or change schools or transfer, or their parents just complain enough, and so the athletic director or administrator in whatever school system you're in tells you, like, hey, lay off. Like, they're just not that good. Maybe lower the standard for them. Well, wait a minute. What, the other 28 people could do it. So what if they learn how to do it? Wouldn't there be more reward if they work through learning to meet the standard and hitting the same standards of their peers? Or, I think every time I talk to either my peers at the university I went to or former alums that maybe didn't play as much in college, the sport itself and the minutes in the game aren't really what they look back on 20 years from now. It's either social moments with their best friend or something they learn that's allowed them to be successful in their future life. And whether that's some sort of leadership, the ability to have difficult conversations, the ability to overcome not being the best in an environment, or maybe, not being the strongest or the fastest, and having to learn how to be a little bit smarter and more thoughtful than people. Most every athlete that I stay connected with that wasn't super successful in an environment that I've been a part of, they don't look back and say it was miserable. They look back and say, like, I went out and had as many adult beverages as you did and had just as much fun at the social interactions, and I reaped the same rewards, but didn't actually have to go through some of the same challenges and stress and things that you dealt with playing. Like, I got to learn those things kind of behind the scenes and without the pressure, but get to put it on my resume, right? Like, there's so many benefits of sport that I think the way our society is operating is stripping that. And as you mentioned, kind of that rolling up your sleeves and having to face something head on is just no longer a thing. And the sad part to me is that sport is the least consequential situation you could put young men and women in to learn things, where, you know, if they're just learning these in society and they can't deal with confrontation appropriately, who knows what comes of that? Or if they can't deal with the responsibility, you know, right now they can't deal with not being the best on a sports team or not feeling liked by their coach. What happens in a marriage when you're not thinking your significant other is communicating appropriately or is expecting too much of you? You know, those things aren't as easy to transfer from jobs, right? In the future, I think if it's not going well, it's a lot harder to go get a job that's paying you, opposed to right now, a lot of these programs are paid to play. I just think we're stripping a lot of the unique benefit of sport that I know for me
I was going to say,
changed my life.
you've made the point beautifully, and it's true, and it's been going on for a long time. And that was to my earlier point. How do you solve that? You know, I've worked in the room with a lot of coaches, including all three of you. How do you teach this stuff to kids who in other environments? I mean, we appeal to parents. In other words, if you could COVID style give a vaccine to parents, a shot in the arm, change their behaviors. As coaches, what do you guys need from parents? What do you want to put in their veins? What do you want to get in their hearts and minds? What do you want to say to your parents?
I would say to just, get out of the way and let the coaches do their jobs and stand there on the sidelines and enjoy both the successes and the failures that your child may experience, because as has been said here, he or she is going to learn just as much through both of those experiences, and as we all know, probably learn more from the failures than the successes, right? So not every game is going to be, a barometer of whether they're going to play in college or not, or get a scholarship or anything like that. But yeah, if there were a parental message, I would say to just relax and enjoy the ride, because as a parent myself, I'm learning that it's over quickly, right? As you said earlier, Jeff, our daughter's athletic career has now come to an end. She's graduating from college in a few weeks. Our son's graduating high school, so he hopefully has 4 years left at the college level. But it's very trite to say, but it goes quickly from the 8U, town team through, whatever their youth career is, through high school, and for the lucky ones, college. And to really focus on the relationships that your child is making with their teammates and the adults that are coaching them, but also the relationships you're fortunate enough to make. My wife and I have made some terrific friends through our kids' athletic careers, and people that we will stay in touch with for years. And that's a gift, and that will hopefully last well beyond the kids' playing careers, and is a lot more impactful than whether they scored a goal or got a hit or what have you. It really comes back to the relationships. So I would have folks focus on that.
It was funny and words of wisdom all around, when you said enjoy their successes, and you said, quote, enjoy their failures too. And I got gooseflesh, because it's very evident that we're in an outcome fever, new parenting playbook, frantic kind of style. And we've talked about it on these Zoom calls, the new parenting playbook. enjoy a kid's failure. I mean, that's Greek. That sounds like Greek to a lot of parents today. Even I, who believe it, I thought, wait, John, you can't say that. But you're exactly right. That is what, as we've said, all on this call, teaches kids how to get strong, get those eyes going, and get over the hump. Kip, what did you want to add to it?
Pretty much the same message, probably a little bit stronger in terms of, I think as parents, we all want to protect our kids, and protecting our kids doesn't mean that they're never going to fall. And by trying to prevent them from falling or prevent them from failing, we're actually hurting them in the long run, because that's where you're going to grow the most. And we try to talk to our kids a lot about the fact that their failures really don't define them. What will define them is how they rise after they do fail or after they do fall down. And you were involved with one of our classes that they were to the point when they were younger that they would avoid a situation where they might fail. And they were so worried about failing that they wouldn't put themselves in positions to fail. And I think we're able to get them to trust their ability to overcome adversity. And I think as a result, those kids are going to be successful. And a lot of it is because the parents also trusted us to put them in those positions. So to me, the message to the parents would be, protecting your kid doesn't mean putting them in bubble wrap or in a room and they can't do anything else, because that's really going to hurt them in the long run.
There's this story that I've had for years on my computer and taught it. Let me find it. Wrong one. The butterfly. One day a man found a cocoon of a butterfly. When a small opening appeared, he sat and watched the butterfly for several hours as it struggled to force its body through the tiny hole. Then it seemed to stop making any progress. It had gotten as far as it could. So the man decided to help the butterfly. He snips off the remaining bit of the cocoon, and the butterfly emerged easily, but it had a swollen body and shriveled wings. The man continued to watch. He was hoping the butterfly, but the butterfly, what the man in his kindness and haste didn't understand was the restricting cocoon and the struggle required for the caterpillar to get through the opening, when nature's way of getting the fluid out of the body of the caterpillar and the butterfly, and they come out, they go through the struggle, and then they can fly. I mean, you see it in nature every day. I heard a story the other day about can you believe this, on New Hampshire Public Radio, the warning from the naturalists was, don't take a fawn in the woods and move a baby deer, because mom is out foraging. Mom knows where the baby is. So people are grabbing baby deers because they feel badly for them, moving them and putting them where. But I almost drove off the road because there's been a change in the zeitgeist of society where, right, overprotecting, it's real. So your advice to parents, those that end up watching this, and my advice, you got to enjoy your kid's journey, as Coach Morrissey said, but you've got to, and I think John said, get out of the way and let me coach. Get out of the way. You're in Little League, your kid's in Little League, you're paying taxes so your kid can be in Little League. Your kid's at Northeastern, you're paying tuition so Ashley and her staff can coach your kid. Get out of the way. I know it's really hard to do. My wife and I don't have kids, but all the coaches I know, they don't interfere with their sons and daughters' coaches. They know better. Collaborate with the people trying to take care of your kids. That's my advice. You guys have other advice for kids, for parents rather?
Parenting
Yeah,
advice. God.
Go ahead, Coach.
No, I got nothing. I completely screwed up my daughter, so I'm not giving anybody else parent.
Well, we don't.
Yeah, but believe me, we're the advice is not because we have all the answers. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, just to go back earlier, Jeff, to your point as to how as coaches
we try to find solutions to the lack of the 6 eyes. And, honestly, not to pump your tires, but what we did was give the fact that kids were struggling with those things as much time as batting practice and pitchers working their arms. All the physical skills and strategy of the game, in baseball are obviously important. And we spend time on that, but we also started spending time on the kids' lack of having a lot of those 6 eyes that you talked about. And we spent time together talking about that and what we would like their approach to look like. And 3 years in, I think it has had, a really great impact. So I think more coaches should take the time to look at their kids' intestinal fortitude and independence and integrity and all those sorts of things that you talk about there, just as much as, the corner kick for Ashley, or, what the cover 2 defense is looking like for Kip and things like that. So you obviously need to spend a ton of time on the technical facets of whatever game you're coaching, but you also really need to take the time to look at the kids as people, and what makes them tick and what can make them better. So we've committed to that in our program, and I would love for many other coaches do the same.
It's weird, John, because I think when I was younger, I was excited about the X's and the O's and everything else. And the thing that excites me the most now are the relationships that you were talking about, and really trying to figure out what clicks with a kid that gets him over the hump, or what allows him to understand what makes him important, not only to the team, but also in general. So those are the things to me that are the most important now. The X's and O's, we'll figure that out.
Right. Totally agree.
I think parents need to see their kids for who they are and let them be themselves. Just give them space, room. You don't plant a bunch of tulips and pen them in, let the kids grow. And that involves risk of failure. That's why the story about the butterfly. Don't cut the cocoon too early, and collaborate with your kids' coaches and their teachers. And the people that are, John Morrissey, people on this call are not getting rich coaching kids. They're not home plotting how to make sure your daughter or son does, it should be collaborative. All the stuff that everybody on this call, I'm the oldest guy on the call. Ashley, I've been told not to ask women their age. I guess we're all old enough to have grown up in an era when those 6 eyes were taught by osmosis. What was your football coach's, what was his name, Buddy or something you said, Kip, the guy that you see who's 84?
Coach Bud.
Coach Bud. He didn't sit at home and think, I got to teach Jackson about intestinal fortitude. Like, that stuff was just in the air, and we all learned it. The 4 of us learned it by osmosis. And I agree with John Morrissey, like, you got to get intentional about teaching kids those, and those are just my 6 I words, but teaching the kids the skills, the intangible skills of being a good person and a tough person and a collegial person and a good teammate and a good sport. Every kid I talk to on every team, they all say, yeah, well, most of us talk trash. We talk trash. I mean, Coach Bud didn't teach you to talk trash, did he, Kip?
No, it came naturally.
You know what I'm saying? So that's just one manifestation of, I think, we've lost track of the stuff that really matters for boys and girls. Ashley, do you want to say something?
No, I totally agree. I just think that all adults, we all have to let them figure it out a little bit more and deal with the consequence, right? And again, in sport, those consequences are minimal. So I say the same to myself and my staff. Like, we can't micromanage them and micro instruct and coach and yell and tell them every move and when to pass here and there. Like, they're not learning anything. Like, I could joystick them to outperform other teams, but they're not actually getting better. They're not actually growing. You know, I think just as adults in general, we have to let young people fail sometimes. And you know, John didn't get both kind of touched on it. Like, enjoy it. Enjoy them learning through failures that don't lead to significant consequence, right? Because it's going to make them better people in the future and better humans. And you said it, none of us, I work at Division I college level. I do not get paid well enough to come up with a plan of how to play who I don't like and who isn't my favorite or this and that. You know, part of my job is to win games, so I'm going to put the players I think will do that out there, regardless of my personal feelings about them. But I think ultimately, as everyone said, it's called, we're in it to help people develop and grow. Like, winning games is just one part of it. The biggest part is investing in the people. I mean, you asked us why we all do this, and every one of us said the people, right? And I think families knew that and trusted that. And believe that and you know, understand that's why we're in this, is because of the personal connection and the relationships and the ability to help develop young men and women. I think they would maybe take their hands off a little bit more. And I think we have to get back to that. I think as a society, we're just distrusting. And I think we really need to get back to believing, if we're going to send someone to play for someone, that, you know, that they have the right intentions in mind. And like you said, collaborate with them, right? If you're not sure, you don't trust the coach, why not call them? Find out more about them, learn about them, ask why their kid's maybe not the most talented on the team or what they can do better. I just think families can support kids through failures instead of just trying to cut the cocoon for them.
No question. And you've said several times the sports shouldn't be so consequential, but I think a lot of parents have gotten wrapped up in it. When you have little league coaches screaming at 10-year-olds, we've lost perspective. And there are books written. Somebody in Baseball Mojo wrote a book. A guy pitched for the Mets or somebody. You know the book I'm talking about? About Little League. And I have.
No, I'm not familiar with that one. Sorry.
But occasionally you get some famous athlete to say, or you get, God forbid, you know, these kids, Ashley, the soccer goalie who took her own life. You see these tragedies, or you see well-known figures advised, we got to calm down, guys. But I don't know how it really changes on the ground. It's easy for me to say, but I think coaches need to say, Mr. and Mrs. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. You got to help me. Maybe you got to help me, or your kid can't play. You know, somebody has to start setting limits somewhere. You know what I mean? Kip, what you wanted to add in something in?
No, I was going to say a lot of this starts even sooner, just because you were asking where we learned some of these things. And a lot of it was me going to the playground, or me going to play pickup baseball and working with my friends or people who were my friends, trying to work through things. The guy who was the head football coach where I grew up, he was one of my best friends, but we used to have a fight almost every day because I used to go over his house to play basketball. We'd get in an argument, and then I'd go eat dinner inside, and then I'd leave. I mean, kids don't really have the opportunity to do that because every single second of their day is planned, because they're in organized sports from the time they're 5 years old all the way up through high school. And we're not allowing them to navigate some of these things by themselves. And I think it's adding to the challenge later on in life.
No question. And that's a huge part of the new parenting playbook, which is not intentional. Parents aren't home.
No, not at all.
Right. But we've all gotten caught up in it. And, you know, we got to call timeout on it. You drive by, I've said it on these calls till I'm blue, but you drive by frozen ponds, there's no one skating. You drive by playgrounds, there's nobody out there. And that's certainly a big part of this, for sure.
Yeah.
I know we've been on here for an hour, and I appreciate it. Do you guys want to offer any comments in summary, as we say in the courtroom? Or have we said all we want to say? The other, let me just see one thing.
I was on trial, I would, but right now I'm hungry, so I really don't have anything else.
There was something else. Now, we covered it. I mean, giving kids more space to learn the skills on their own. You could do an hour on imagination. You could do an hour on intestinal fortitude. You could do an hour on intimacy, do an hour on integrity. You could do 5 hours on identity. But I feel like when you have, I was at John's game the other day. He seems to have left the Zoom. I think he pops in and out, but his baseball kids weren't playing well and people were not competing. And his post-game talk was, boys, you got to take a look in the mirror. And he just walked away. In my sense, even though they're not going to play at 2 when it's 96, they're going to play in the morning when it's a little cooler. I think we're going to see 20 boys who are going to come out fighting. That's my thought. Ashley, any final comment? And then Kip?
No, I mean, I think, as you said, you could talk about these things forever, but yeah, I think we just have to remember sports are meant to be fun, and sports are meant to be a part of life where young men and women learn things through, and some of that is failure. And I think it's okay to let the individuals learn through that. And I hope we do get back to that. I think I had less pressure as a young athlete playing for the youth national team than some of the boys probably playing for Kip's high school football team. And I hope we get back to that point, because I don't think it's necessarily fair to the young people out there. And I think a lot of times right now as adults, we're trying too hard to make everything better than we had it. And I admire that, because I do think as life evolves, everybody wants to make it better for the next generation. But there's some things you can't take away, and you can't take away hardship and challenges. And at some point, it might happen at different stages, but they're going to face something. And how will your kid react? And I think if every kid thought about that, is what happens if and what happens when something really challenging faces them head on. Will they run? Will they hide? Or will they, find a way to fight through it and face it head on? I think if we can all really think about that and evaluate that, I think, we can help young people a little bit more than we are right now.
So I'm not going to follow up on that because I actually have goosebumps, Ashley. I would go play for you right now. So that was awesome. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Kip.
John Morrissey texted me, I got a hop. I hope that was helpful. Give my best to those 2 people. They seem like good people, unlike you, Jeff. So listen, thank you very much, Ashley, for making time after your golf tournament. And Kip, thanks for coming on. And I think this will be a very valuable recording for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff and Kip. It was really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you also, and I look forward to seeing that head cover at a golf course in the near future. So, Clemson Tiger head cover.
Yeah, not good when you're working at Northeastern, I guess, right?
Probably
At the Northeastern golf tournament, maybe I should buy some new ones.
Yeah.